Jagmeet Singh tries to stay positive as the NDP struggles for support. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
From the orange wave to the orange crush. It's been a little more than 14 years since the late Jack Layton led the NDP to a stunning finish in the 2011 federal election. Layton rode what became known as the orange wave to the best result in a federal election in the NDP's history, 103 seats. Good enough for that party to become the official opposition. This is not that election for the NDP. Today, most of the polls are showing the NDP in the single digits, popular support cratering to levels not seen in more than 30 years. And those same polls suggest the current leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, could lose his own seat in the election in the riding of Burnaby South. But Jagmeet Singh is sounding like he's not concerned at all.
Do you have any concerns about winning your own riding?
This is a really important election, and I think there's a really important choice for Canadians right now. We're seeing that folks are rejecting Pierre Poilievre. They're saying, his plan is no good. His plan is going to hurt my family. It's going to hurt my country. And they're saying no to that. But people are looking at Mark Carney and saying, well, you know what? I'm worried about what Mark Carney will do. If you're worried about him and you're saying, I'm worried that Mark Carney is going to cut the things that I care about. I'm worried that he's the chair of a company that engaged in tax avoidance, a tax dodger, that I'm worried about what that means. Re-elect your New Democrat. You re-elect your New Democrat incumbents, elect New Democrats, send more New Democrats to Ottawa because we're going to stand up and fight for you. If you want someone that's on your side, that's going to say, you know what, no, we're not going to let the things that we care about, the things that were so important to us be cut, send more New Democrats to Ottawa.
It's a new line from Mr. Singh, send more New Democrats to Ottawa. In the early days of the campaign, he had been insisting he was running for Prime Minister. Poll projections show the NDP on pace to win between 5 and 8 seats. That wouldn't even be good enough to hold official party status in the House of Commons. The NDP held 24 seats before the election was called. Mr. Singh is not losing hope.
And I'm also confident that people in this country need New Democrats. We saw that we were able to deliver things like health care expansions, including dental care and Medicare and medication coverage. We saw that through New Democrats, we were able to deliver things like protections for workers. We were only to be able to do that because you voted for us. You voted for New Democrats and you sent us there and we were able to fight for you. So if you want those fights to continue, if you want us to stay in there fighting for you and your family, you got to vote for us.
The NDP campaign is in Vancouver today. Mr. Singh making some comments shortly. Half of the NDP's caucus hails from British Columbia. The Liberal campaign still in Calgary. Liberal leader Mark Carney will also be making an announcement shortly. A sizable crowd showed up last night for a campaign rally in Calgary, with the Liberals hoping they can seize on the momentum, win a few more seats in what is a very conservative-friendly city. George Shahal has a seat in a Calgary riding, Calgary Skyview, but the Conservatives held 8 Calgary ridings before the call of the election. Mark Carney seems surprised by the size of the crowd.
Wow, I am in. I thought I was in Calgary. This is amazing. The shadow. Thank you. God, what a treat. The shadow of McMahon Stadium. Site of many disappointed Edmonton fans. Every Labor Day. I admit it.
Carney was interrupted a few times by a protester who had managed to get into the event, who wanted to know what Carney would do about the genocide in Palestine. Carney agreed there was a genocide, and that's why Canada has an arms embargo, he said. Protester also wanted to know why Canada would purchase the F-35 jet from Boeing of the United States.
We are fighting. We're not. Okay. Listen. I am reviewing that contract. Pay attention. There's a lot to follow. You know what? Thank you. We are reviewing the F-35 contract because we are tired of sending 80 cents of every dollar that we spend to defend this country to someone who is not.
Part of Carney's pitch to the Calgary Liberal faithful is that he is someone who understands the West.
When I was born just north of Fort Mac, the oil sands were called the tar sands, and the idea it was just a dream. But the combination of the ingenuity of Alberta-based scientists, the drive of Alberta entrepreneurs, the support of the provincial and federal governments, created a powerful industry that has enriched all of Canada. And that same partnership, researchers, private sector, federal, provincial government, Alberta ingenuity and drive, that same partnership can usher in a new clean energy era. The world needs that leadership. The world needs Canadian leadership. And we are ready. We are ready. We are ready. We are ready. Thank you.
The Conservative campaign is spending a second day in Sault Ste. Marie before heading to Brampton. Law and order, the theme at a campaign stop today. Pierre Poilievre said a Conservative government would bring in a 3 strikes you're out law. But Sault Ste. Marie is also the home of the headquarters of Algoma Steel, something only mentioned in passing by Mr. Poilievre, even though there are tariffs on Canadian steel exports to the United States. So he was asked by a news reporter what he would do to help the steel industry. He used that as an opening to go after Mark Carney.
This is an area where Mr. Trump and Mr. Carney agree. They both want to tax Canadian steel. Trump with tariffs, Carney with carbon taxes. Mr. Carney has said he's admitted that he wants an expanded industrial carbon tax, and when asked who would pay it, he specifically said the steel industry would pay it. If the Liberal carbon tax is allowed to stay in place and quadruple in size over the next 4 years, as the law has set out, there will be no steel industry left in Canada.
As for the latest polling, not much change. It's still a Liberal lead, according to all the polls. Liaison polling, a 7-point lead for the Liberals. The latest Nanos tracking poll says it's a 4-point lead for the Liberals. Main Street Research has the Liberals up by 3.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
Housing affordability is a big issue in this election campaign. All the parties are promising to do various things to help Canadians find and keep a roof over their heads. So let's put housing policy in the spotlight for a few moments with the help of Kevin Lee, the CEO of the Canadian Home Builders Association. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good to speak with you, Rob.
How would you describe conditions for home builders right now, given the current economic environment?
Not very good at all, unfortunately. It's been going on for a while because of the higher interest rate environment we had experienced over the past couple of years. Of course, we have seen interest rates start to come down, but along with that has come the trade war with the U.S., so things are very quiet in sales offices, and the outlook is not very good right now.
How could tariffs impact the home building industry in Canada?
Yeah, so, I mean, the immediate thing you think of when you hear tariffs is you think construction costs, and that is true, although, Trump putting on 25% tariffs south of the border really only impacts the cost of construction south of the border. It has a bit of an impact on us if we export, let's say, steel, and then it gets turned into a product that we re-import. Where it gets to be a bigger issue is when we have to put on our own counter tariffs. Fortunately, we're able to avoid all of that. There was a phase 2 of tariffs that was to come in if the U.S. slapped on more tariffs last week. We were able to avoid that. those counter tariffs that will raise construction costs. But the much bigger concern, frankly, than the cost of construction changing is just the uncertainty that it has created. And as a result, we're seeing people, not feel comfortable with moving ahead with home purchases. And certainly, if we roll into a recession as a result of this, that automatically means less home purchases and less housing starts. So the problems get worse.
Okay. There's a new target out there for housing starts, new home construction being pitched by a couple of the parties, the NDP and the Liberals. 500,000 new homes a year, which is almost double the record for housing starts. What do you think of that number? How realistic is that number?
It's an important number, and it's new in the way it's being put forward, but it's not new in that CMHC has done analysis over recent years that has talked about exactly that, about the need to double housing starts, because we have such a huge gap between household formation and the number of houses that we actually need in homes and in units in this country compared to what we actually have, and that's been a big driver of escalating house prices. So it's an important number. It is, to say the least, a stretch target because, to your point, it's more than double than what we've ever built for all intents and purposes. But working our way towards that and overcoming all of the barriers and putting things in place to help the industry and, frankly, the market make that happen, because the only way you get there, by the way, is by addressing housing affordability and enabling people to get into the market. So, that target is an important one. We have a long way to go to get there, but the pursuit of it and breaking down the barriers to get there are the real key.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of talk, enthusiasm about modular homes or prefab homes and the use of new technologies to build homes faster. What is that side of the industry like right now, and how realistic is it that it could scale up to meet the moment?
So there's certainly potential in things like modular construction and panelized construction, and lots of our members make use of panelized. There'll be still a smaller portion that makes use of modular, and modular can be any form of house. It's not the trailer park modular home. It could be a 6,000 foot mansion if you want to.
Sure.
But
yeah.
The real issue at this stage is not about the ability of the industry to scale up from a technological perspective. And we do have labor force challenges. There's no question. But the fact of the matter is as of the last quarter, about 25% of our industry had laid people off. What we really need right now to scale up construction is the ability of people to be able to buy homes. We need to make the purpose-built rental market more affordable to build those buildings so that we can move things forward. Through the pandemic, we increased productivity by about 25% over the course of a year, when we had a housing boom that nobody saw coming in an international pandemic. So we have the ability to flex, and then for sure we need to focus on labor and we need to focus on productivity, but first we need to turn around the market.
Okay. Mr. Lee, thank you for your time today. Great to hear from you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome anytime, Rob.
That's Kevin Lee is the CEO of the Canadian Home Builders Association. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Live from the hustings, we have competing campaign events happening right now. Mark Carney, the Liberal leader, Prime Minister, is in Calgary, expected to make some remarks shortly and take some questions from news reporters following the Carney campaign. Mr. Carney is yet to start speaking. Mr. Singh in Vancouver today, promising the expansion of pharmacare, and he has been taking questions from news reporters following the NDP campaign. Let's listen to a little bit of Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democrats.
Address, you talked about saying the importance of electing more New Democrat MPs to fight for a pharmacare expansion, but you never mentioned like an NDP government would expand this. Does this signal that at this point in the campaign you're looking more to elect more New Democrats to push for another minority government?
Well, I can tell you that 25 of us were able to force the government to do something they would never have done. We were able to bring in pharmacare. And just to remind folks, Liberals had promised this 3 decades ago, more than 30 years ago, and had no movement on it. And the only and first time there was any movement on pharmacare was because we forced them to do it. So if you want pharmacare, it's clear you need New Democrats. And I would be honored for you to elect as many New Democrats as possible. But more and more Canadians are telling me when I go to the doors, when I meet people, they're saying, you know what, I think Ottawa works best when one party doesn't have all the power. And so if you want someone in Ottawa that's going to fight to actually make pharmacare move forward, that's going to be New Democrats. I would say it's clear that Mark Carney doesn't want to expand it, wants to stop it dead in its tracks. And that's not going to help Canadians who are wondering about how they can afford their medication. So if you want someone that's going to fight for pharmacare for all and the next phase, which is essential medication coverage, re-elect your New Democrat incumbents and elect more New Democrats so we can fight for you.
So at this point, is the primary goal to hold the balance in power, since you were just saying one of the best ways to have a government right now is where one party doesn't hold all the power? Do you want to hold that balance of power?
Well, what I want is what's in the best interest of Canadians. And Canadians are telling me that when they have New Democrats there, they know they've got someone that's going to fight for them. They know that they got someone they can count on. When their chips are down, they know New Democrats are only going to prioritize the needs of people, not those of the billionaires, not those of CEOs, but everyday folks. And so if that's someone that's you, if you're hearing this and you're saying, you know what, yeah, I am worried about Mark Carney's cuts. I'm worried that he's going to stop pharmacare dead in its tracks. I want to see pharmacare expand. I like that good work. I would say, well, to make that happen, you got to re-elect your New Democrat incumbents. You got to elect more of us if you want these type of programs to continue. We're seeing more and more people reject Pierre Poilievre and his plan to cut healthcare and to cut the things you need. People are saying that's bad for the country. That's bad for me and my family. And I hear people on that. And I'm also hearing people say, well, I'm worried that Mark Carney's talking a lot about cuts as well. If you're worried about that, send New Democrats to Ottawa. We're going to fight for you.
Thank you. Now, next question, Ashley Burke, CBC.
Good morning, Mr. Singh.
Good morning.
Would a fully funded pharmacare program be the cost of NDP support in the next parliament?
Well, we've laid out the steps to achieve it. So the first phase, what we want to see happen is the essential medication, and the cost for that is about $3.5 billion. This is an investment in our healthcare. Every other country in the world that has universal healthcare has included medication coverage because they figured out it doesn't actually make sense that people can go into a physician, get prescribed medication to keep them healthy or to cure an illness, and they simply can't afford it. It is a bad way to run a healthcare system. And so we really believe fundamentally everyone deserves access to medication. This is something fundamental. We've passed the legislation, the framework for it, and we want to see it continue. I'm concerned, I think Canadians are worried when they hear Mark Carney talk about stopping it, not continuing it, not moving forward with it. They're worried about that because they want to see more medication covered. If that's you, vote for New Democrats and we'll get it done.
But if there's a future minority government, would this be the cost of your support? And as well, we've seen you do policy announcements like this. We've seen you meet with unions, workers, campaign volunteers. But so far this week, I haven't seen a single supporter at any of your events. Why is that?
So when it comes to what we want to do in the next parliament, I want to lay out what Canadians can expect us to fight for. We're going to fight for you, and we want to lay out the things that we want to fight for. The thing that we're laying out today is pharmacare. For a lot of Canadians, this is a big word.
Kind of a stinging question there from the news reporter on the NDP campaign. Where are your supporters? Where are your supporters? We expected this kind of messaging from the New Democrats at this stage of the campaign, given where things stand for them. Dropping this idea of forming a government or a prime minister, Jagmeet Singh, and instead saying, you really want the Liberals to have a majority? Look what we did for you in the last parliament. Pharmacare, dental care. Do you really want the Liberals to have a majority?
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio. The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday Panel. Ashton Arsenault is partner at Crestview Strategy. Welcome back, Ashton. Good to hear from you.
Good to be here, Rob.
Yeah, and Jordan Paquette is back, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group. I guess it's an all-island edition. Didn't we do this last week, an all-islander edition of the Newsday Panel?
You love to see it.
Right. Okay.
Turning into all-island Wednesdays.
Yeah, all-island Wednesday. Sounds good. Okay. Look, we have been talking about the size of the crowds at Pierre Poilievre's rallies, for weeks. Only now it seems most of the news media has started to take notice. Multiple news stories about this today after the big event in Edmonton the other night. But they're stories about a narrative. And the narrative is crowd sizes have no bearing on election results, and everyone is making too much of the crowds at the Poilievre rallies. What do you think about that, Jordan Paquette?
So, yeah, the ones that are saying that, look at during Mark Carney's leadership, they were going around counting how many people were in the room and showing how Canadians were drawn and coming out to see him. And then they're protesting quite a bit now that Poilievre's getting so much else, now finally saying, oh, crowd sizes don't matter. Look, is it an indicator of the final election result? Not necessarily, no. But it's one thing. It shows momentum. It shows campaign organization. And it's given a huge boost to the ground troops who are then going to go talk to their friends, who are then going to go pound in lawn signs, who are going to knock doors, who are going to donate. So it's just showing a campaign that's full of energy. They've been able to pull out record crowd sizes everywhere. And I think that's something worth talking about, despite the ones that are spinning that it doesn't matter.
Okay. Crowd sizes have no bearing on election results. That's a story in the news today. What do you think about it, Ashton?
Yeah, I think Jordan's largely correct. I don't think there's any question at this point that Pierre knows how to draw a crowd. The numbers speak for themselves. These are unusually large crowds for political rallies in Canada. For me, a couple of things come to mind. So, Poilievre is the change candidate in this election. And when you really want change, you're more likely to show up and support that candidate. And as well, I think what we're seeing speaks to the types of campaigns the Tories and the Liberals are running here. So the Tories have that energy, that excitement, whereas the Liberals are leaning more on the image of Mark Carney being a steady hand at the wheel in perhaps an uncertain time. It's sort of this rock star change versus boardroom poise. And today, the numbers indicate Canadians are leaning towards poise, perhaps. But let's talk about the upside here. So if you're the Tories, you're banking on the fact that these huge rallies are going to turn into a huge turnout on election night. And if you go to a political rally, there's a better than not chance you're going to vote, right? And so for the Liberals, they know, much to the contrary of what Jordan said, they know that attending these rallies don't necessarily translate to votes, and it's that simple. So crowd size, it's fun to talk about, but we'll have to wait until election night to see the results.
Okay, I want to ask you about something else. It's kind of related to the whole rally story, but it's something I have noticed, and I just want to know if I could be out to lunch. Maybe I'm onto something. Who knows? Online platforms. You see the crowds in these rooms, big crowds. I notice as well, though, that tens of thousands of people are watching these rallies online. They're watching the live stream of these rallies on platforms like X and YouTube. I mentioned last week, there was a rally that Poilievre had last week, and it was being live streamed on X. You get a notice on X, Pierre Poilievre is live now. And I clicked on that. 52,000 people were watching on X. 52,000 people. Does it mean they all liked what they saw? No. Does it mean they're all in Canada? No. Does it mean they can all vote? No. I get all of this. So maybe some of them are bots. So then last night I was watching a little bit of this rally. 20,000 people are watching on X on the live stream with all the caveats that I just mentioned. And then I just happened to pop over to YouTube where they are also live streamed, and another 3,000 are watching there. I mean, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of views for a Canadian political rally. Doesn't mean anything, though. Jordan, what do you think?
So for a while now, the Conservatives have just been completely eating the Liberals' lunch when it comes to online engagement. I remember seeing a presentation from YouTube last fall, and they were showing Conservative numbers and Poilievre numbers specifically compared to the Liberals. And I mean, their engagement was like 10 times as high. I think the Conservatives have just done a great job over the last couple of years of leveraging these platforms, utilizing some of these long-form documentaries, really building up followers, and it just goes to show that their supporters and members are engaged. So yeah, you're not going to turn on CBC in the evening and see a Poilievre rally or even a big glowing endorsement of it, but you'll see this in those online platforms, and that's really where the Conservatives have spent a lot of time targeting, is these new media, social media opportunities.
What do you think? The live streams, could they translate into votes on election night? What do you think, Ashton?
Yeah, Rob, I think you're onto something. Look, the way that elections are being conducted and the vehicles being used to get the message out are changing, and they have been for a decade. We certainly saw that with President Trump in the last election. And even going all the way back to 2015, we saw Trudeau sort of presenting as this social media darling back then. But in this election, the online and social media darling is Pierre Poilievre. There's no question. The average conservative voter today is actually trending younger and is far more likely to use social media daily and prefer those mediums to interact with politicians than perhaps ever before, which is a huge departure from, again, going back to 2015. But here's the weird part of it. The average liberal voter in this election, it seems to be trending older. They're more comfortable with traditional media and network news. They're not necessarily attending rallies, but instead are sort of mainlining this network news that's rather doom and gloom about the current set of circumstances, right?
Trump. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a complete 180.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. The two kind of, I mean, you've got, obviously two competing campaigns here. It's very much a two-party race, this election campaign seems right now, but you also have two ways their supporters are consuming the media. And let's talk about that when we come back. Let's think about traditionally how people would consume news about an election. They would watch the 6 o'clock news, watch the national news at night, maybe watch the political talk shows on the networks, read the daily newspapers. Now we have a complete non-mainstream media ecosystem in this country. This is also a campaign of YouTubers and podcasters and TikTokers and influencers. And how do you think that is impacting this election campaign? Jordan Piquet?
Yeah, well, it's been a huge trend, I think, to what Ashton was talking about before over the last number of years. I mean, traditionally, the NDP had been sort of the TikTok experts for a while, but I think now that a lot more people are using these platforms, as we were just discussing, conservatives have now found their way into it. They've been producing these more long-form documentaries every time that Poilievre does a policy announcement, so he's constantly feeding content into these platforms for voters to go and look at, and I think that's been paying off in dividends for them. I suppose we'll see totally at the end come election day, but what Ashton was talking about before as well, we've kind of been able to flip the Conservatives flip the demographics of support to young people traditionally being more on the left to now solidly back into Conservatives, and it looks like some of that vote is completely locked in.
What do you think, Ashton? What do you think?
Yeah, there's no denying the fact that things are changing. However, I think we're putting the cart before the horse if we suggest that it's changing for everybody, right?
Okay.
Because if we look at some of the demographics involved in this election campaign, you have perhaps an older Canadian, definitely in the 55-plus bracket, that generally tends to be a little bit more suspicious of social media, doesn't perhaps use it on a daily basis. They might have a Facebook account, they might have an X account, but they're not necessarily sharing their thoughts with the world, and they might use it sparingly as compared to younger demographics. And I think one of the key themes coming out of this election not only is going to be the relevance of perhaps traditional and network news, but the impact it potentially had on the outcome of this election. And, it's really remarkable to see, because you go back in time, maybe even less than 10 years, the Liberals and more progressive parties dominated this space in sort of the new wave media, whether it be TikToking, podcasting, YouTubing, use whatever, adjective you'd like, but the script has flipped. The Republican Party has done this south of the border. The Conservatives seems like they've done it here, and it's something we'll have to take stock in going forward because it's a new landscape.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move along and talk about Trump and tariffs. And so Liberation Day is come and gone. There's some thought, okay, the Conservatives got past Liberation Day. That's kind of in the rear view mirror now. And there's maybe a little more certainty about that now. Maybe it was a mistake for Danielle Smith to call that a win, but maybe we can move beyond that now and focus on the issues that we have always wanted to focus on: cost of living, housing, crime. That was a topic today for Poilievre. Budgets, taxes, But at the same time, you've had all this turmoil in financial markets. That is top of mind for a lot of people as well. So where exactly do things stand on Trump is the big issue versus, well, it's an issue, but there are also all of these other issues? Ashton, what would you say, Ashton?
Yeah, so two undeniable things for me over the course of this campaign. A sputtering, if not non-existent NDP, and to a lesser extent Bloc, and of course the outsized impact Trump is having on the election. The public opinion bears it out. I keep bringing up this demographic, but it's important. If you're 55 and over, and by the way, they tend to vote, the biggest issue in this campaign is Trump and who is best suited to deal with him. If things stay that way, it's going to be good news for the Liberals because as of right now, that entire age demographic is leaning heavily towards the red team, and I would lump stock market chaos in there as well. But, you know, these are folks, in Canada at least, that are usually pretty comfortable, own homes, and probably have a pension. And so they're afraid to lose what they have. But weird part is, on the other side of the coin, you've got voters who want change and are frustrated with their lot in life. And these folks are younger, or either struggling to pay their rent, or seeing perhaps their dream of owning a home slipping away. And so, you know, these are people that have been talked down to. Their wages aren't growing. This time around, that's your conservative voter. And so if this election concludes on affordability, I think it's going to benefit the Tories, and I think we'll see movement in the numbers. But if it's more Trump, the Liberals benefit.
Jordan, would you agree with that analysis?
Yeah, no, for the most part, absolutely. I think the Conservatives had a plan for a long time to make this election about affordability and about change. And we are seeing now, after so-called Liberation Day last week, that maybe the temperature on that has come down a little bit. Now, it is Donald Trump that we're talking about, so if God said was going to swing his tail again, it could just upend the whole thing once again. Yeah. But I don't think that's why I don't think it's smart for the Tories to constantly try and pivot and chase something else, as some people from the outside might like to say. I think they have a solid plan. I think they're executing on that plan, and that's their best chance right now if they can bring it back towards this idea of change, and showing that Mark Carney is just, it might be a different guy at the top, but pull it back the curtain, it's all the same people around the table that have made these decisions for the last 10 years.
Okay, we will stop here. We'll talk about campaign gaffes when we come back. We're pretty much at the halfway point of this campaign. There have been gaffes by all involved. What's the biggest one, though? We have some nominees. All the campaigns have made their fair share of gaffes. We want to know, what do you think is the biggest gaffe of the election campaign so far? We have some nominees. Here they are. Carney defends the bounty hunter candidate. Singh campaigns with an anti-Israel OnlyFans model. Anyone have that on the bingo card? Poilievre loses multiple candidates in the span of a few days. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says Liberation Day is an important win for Canada and Alberta. An important win for Canada and Alberta. So those are just some nominees. You may have some of your own. Ashton, the biggest gaffe of the campaign so far, what would it be in your opinion?
I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm not entirely certain we've seen the biggest gaffe of the campaign just yet. Still plenty of time for somebody to do something stupid or for a great piece of opposition research to come to light. It's worth reminding people listening in, we've passed the point of being able to replace a candidate. So if you're smart and you're sitting on a gold mine of something that's truly unpalatable to the voting public, you wait until that deadline comes and goes before you spring it on the public. So I think there's going to be more to come. Here's the reality. Parties always lose candidates, right? Happens every election. That's kind of just the nature of the beast. You've got 342 individuals on each side. Somebody's going to do or say something stupid. That's life. Let's see. I'm very interested in the debates this time around, and I think, to your point, there have been mistakes on all sides. Perhaps the party that limits those in search of the finish line is going to prevail here. I don't know.
Very, very, very good. Okay. All right. We haven't seen it yet would be Ashton's take. I actually like that. Stay tuned. What do you think, Jordan? What do you think?
No, I agree. That's what I was going to say. I don't think we've seen the biggest one yet. There have been a few, as you referenced so far, Rob, the Paul Chang situation. That was an easy one that the Liberals could have just did away with right away. They kept it going. They lost 2 days on the campaign trail in a short election. That's a lot of time. So there's that one. There's the other one when Mark Carney referred to the massacre at École Polytechnique that happened at Concordia in front of his other candidate as well. But I agree. Look, the longer, and it could happen to anybody. In fairness, it could happen to anybody going forward. And Conservatives could do something too. But the longer that Carney is out at a microphone, and this could happen in the debates, he tends to ramble on and ends up saying something that's either completely incorrect, completely contradictory, or whatever else. So I think the debates will be very interesting for that sense, especially the French one, because we've seen how he struggled perhaps communicating in French as well and putting those same points across. So I'll be watching closely next Wednesday for what happens there.
Okay. Good to hear from all of you. Thanks for the all-island edition again of the Newsday panel.
Thanks, Rob. Good to see you,
Speak
George.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Ashton Arsenault is a partner at Crestview Strategy. Jordan Paquette, Vice President at Blue Sky Strategy Group. Talkback is coming up.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. We're once again knee-deep into the federal election campaign. We're pretty much at the halfway point now. Today is April 9th, Election Day, April 28th, 19 days away. So pretty much halfway there. I mean, you know what most of the polls say? Almost all of the polls, if not all of them, are saying it's the Liberals in the lead, the Conservatives trailing in second place, and maybe it's a 3-point lead for the Liberals. Maybe the Liberal lead is a lot bigger than that. Maybe it's a double-digit lead. And it's bleak for the team in orange, for the NDP. Not going well for the NDP at all so far. But the second half of this election campaign has really yet to begin. And next week, all the news is going to be about the debates. Getting ready for the debates, watching the debates. Who won the debates? Will the debates make any difference at all? That's next week's news. Here's what we want to do today with your help. We're going to run 3 things by you, what we call 3 election questions. 3 election questions. And we just want to know your answers, all based on policies, promises, and ideas that are kind of floating around out there. So our phone lines are open right now. Our call-in line is 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. And if you're ready, we're ready. Here are our 3 election questions for today. Here is question number 1. Are you okay or not okay with the federal government running deficits? Where are you on deficits? Are you okay with deficits or not okay with the federal government running deficits? That's question number 1. Here's question number 2. Should people only be allowed to buy homes if they live in Canada? Or put another way, should foreigners be banned from buying homes in Canada? What do you think? Should foreigners be banned from buying Canadian homes? That's question number 2. Here's question number 3. Should all Canadian governments, I'm talking federal, provincial, municipal, stop doing any business with any companies that are owned by Elon Musk, Tesla, Starlink? How would you answer that question? Should all Canadian governments, federal, provincial, municipal governments, stop doing any business with any companies owned by Elon Musk? What do you think of that idea? 1-833-668-2577. That is our call-in line. We have lines available right now, and we'd love to hear from you. 3 election questions. Elon Musk, not very popular in Canada these days. Not very popular in the United States either, because of his association with Donald Trump. Some Canadians believe he has embraced far-right politics. So should Canadian governments stop doing any business with the guy? It's question number 3. You don't have to answer them all. You have your pick. You can answer one of our questions, 2 of our questions. You can answer all 3. We're not going to rush you. We just want to know, get a better handle when it comes to these particular issues, where you land. For example, should the federal government be balancing the budget and not be running budget deficits year after year after year? Or are you okay with the federal government running deficits as long as it means the government is making meaningful investments into the public services that you care about? Just what is your line of thinking on that? What do you think about this idea, banning people from other countries from buying real estate in Canada? That's a big promise from the NDP that the NDP made just a few days ago. The previous Liberal government did announce a ban on foreign ownership of real estate. It was criticized for having loopholes and for being temporary. The NDP ban would be permanent. The Conservatives have their own plan. They would also ban foreigners from buying homes in Canada. They would run it as kind of a 2-year pilot program. And look, it is all the rage right now in Canada among what I would call the protester class to protest outside of Tesla dealerships. Protests happening like that just about every weekend. I mean, just about every city in Canada where there's a Tesla dealership. We have also seen some governments announce they're not going to do business with any of Elon Musk's companies. The Ontario government, for example, had a deal with Starlink to provide satellite internet access to remote and rural communities. It canceled that. The New Brunswick government had a plan to buy some Teslas, under a Green the Government Fleet program. Not going to do that anymore. I noticed the Halifax Regional Council voted yesterday to deactivate its account on X, or what we used to call Twitter, because they don't like Elon Musk. The regional councilors don't like Elon Musk. So that's why we're asking that question. If governments at every level really should stop doing business with companies owned by Elon Musk. Weigh in on all of these, or some of them, if you want to. Again, our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. You should really save that number in your phone. Just put us on speed dial. Some of our loyal callers have done that. If you've never called before, just mention that to Andrea, our call screener, and she'll make your call a priority. And you can answer our 3 election questions. On Wednesday's edition of Talkback, I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio. Your call's next. Okay, we will get back to your calls in just a moment, but we do have a significant development and a big piece of breaking news to pass along. And again, it comes from Donald Trump. And again, it is from a posting on Truth Social. Donald Trump just posted that he is going to raise the tariff charge to China to 125% effective immediately, saying, quote, at some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. So that's one piece of news. It's not the biggest news, however. This is the big news. Conversely, he says on social media, based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representative of the United States, including Department of Commerce, Treasury, and U.S. Trade Representative, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, non-monetary tariffs, and that these countries have not, at my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10% effective immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald Trump, just moments ago. This has done wonders. You cannot imagine for the stock market. My goodness gracious, the stock market this morning was looking quite bleak on the retaliatory tariff announcement from China, 85% tariffs on American exports to China. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now is up more than 2,000 points. Check that. It just moved higher by another 300 points, up by almost 2,500 points. It is now back above 40,000. The S&P 500 is up 7%, a huge gain for the S&P 500. The TSX Main index in Toronto is up 3%. It's up almost 700 points. The NASDAQ, which has been beaten up and battered and bruised, is up 9% right now. That is a gain of almost 1,400 points for the NASDAQ. And the Canadian dollar is approaching 71 cents US, a remarkable move in our currency. It started the day kind of hugging the flat line of 70 cents US, and here it is. It's up almost a full penny right now. Gold prices up $120 an ounce at 31.10 US an ounce. The only thing that is not along for the ride right now is oil prices. Oil prices, this is on still concerns about the health of the economy, the potential for a recession because of all of this talk about tariffs. $57 oil right now. But huge breaking news out of the White House. Donald Trump raising tariffs on China to 125%, while at the same time announcing a 90-day pause and lowering reciprocal tariffs to 10%, effective immediately. The stock market rallying big time on that news. With that, we will stop there. That's a developing story. It's breaking right now. I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And welcome to it. 3 election questions today. Are you okay, not okay with the federal government running deficits? Should foreigners be banned from buying Canadian homes? All the parties have a stance on that. Should Canadian governments stop doing any business with companies owned by Elon Musk? What are your opinions on these questions, please? What way are you leaning? Let's go to Karen in Calgary, I believe, is up next. Karen in Calgary.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Karen. You're welcome.
So, with regard to the deficits, no.
Yes.
I mean, it's you said
Not
yesterday.
okay.
How much interest is it a day?
It's $4.5 million an hour. Yeah.
Outrageous. I'm choking listening to that.
Yeah, it's a
How
lot
are
of
we
money.
ever going to pay that back? And they want to spend more.
Yeah. I mean, between the two of us, it's $60,000. You owe 30 and I owe 30. So
Exactly.
Right.
Not to mention my own money I owe.
Right. Well, that's it. Right. Okay. What do you think about a ban on foreigners from buying Canadian real estate?
I would say yes and no. If there's a
Yes and
legitimate
no.
reason
Okay,
for them,
okay.
well, if they had a legitimate reason to be here, say they got a 5-year contract or something, or the company owns the house and sends
Okay.
Bob Smith to Canada to work, they should be able to not spend, 5 years on a hotel room, things like that. But for Joe Blow to come here and start buying 10, 20 houses, just look at what happened to Vancouver.
Okay.
Nobody can afford it anymore.
Right. So if there's a legitimate reason for somebody to buy the house, but for example, in the NDP said it's the speculators. They want to go after the speculators, and it sounds like you want to go after speculators too.
Oh, 100%. Most of
Right.
it's money laundering. So that's where the money comes from.
And you're concerned about money laundering. What do you think about the idea Canadian government shouldn't be doing business with Elon Musk, given his association with Donald Trump?
Absolutely.
Shouldn't be buying Teslas, shouldn't be doing Starlink deals. What do you think?
Absolutely ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Why do you say that?
Yes. Well, do we want to start setting Teslas on fire? All these environmentalists. It's not very good for the environment to set a Tesla on fire.
Well, no, that's not what I'm suggesting.
I know, but
let's say, the Alberta government has a plan to buy some Teslas or something like that. There are a lot of remote and rural communities where it's very hard to get reliable internet access or any internet access at all. I
currently have property in British Columbia, and I have Starlink, and it's the best thing that's ever happened. I can sit out there and work with absolutely zero disruption for a reasonable price. Why would I want to spend, Rogers $4,000 a month for their service in the middle of nowhere? Starlink is the way to go, and I think people
Starlink.
should start smartening up. Elon Musk, like the guy said, doesn't work for Donald Trump. He's saving the money. And you're going to get mad at a guy? Why? Because your name's not on the list for the free cash?
Just that. It's people view him as part of he's embracing far right political movements as well, interfering in in elections in other countries.
Well, I highly doubt that.
Okay, all right. Well, you ask the Germans about it. Thank you, though, Karen. Okay, thank you. Let's go to Shane. Is in Edmonton. Hello, Shane.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Shane. How are you?
Good. I just thought I'd phone in and weigh in on this political
the 3 election questions
litmus test you're giving us today.
No, I just want to figure out where people stand on certain things, so.
Yeah, I have a feeling that everyone that calls is going to answer all the questions one way or the other, but the same way, right?
Well, maybe. All right. Well, let's get going here. Well, where are you on the government running deficits?
I think at this point we should probably stop. My answer is going to be the same for a lot of them. I think at this point we should probably stop until we get our fiscal house in order. Same with the United States. She talked about how much debt we're carrying here. In the United States, they have $360,000 in debt for every citizen in the United States. Like, how the heck are they going to crawl out of that? So I think maybe right now, like, there's a good case to be made for infrastructure projects and stuff when it comes to deficit spending. But right now, I think we should stop and get things in order.
Okay. It's a pretty deep hole, but just when it comes to the budget deficit, I mean, $62 billion was the last budget deficit. You'd really have to.
Well, yeah, and let's not forget that, our debt's doubled under Trudeau. Like, that's the other thing.
Yeah, well, they would say a lot of that was COVID support, though.
Well, we didn't have to do we didn't have to do what we did in COVID, right? We didn't have to do that. That was a choice that many nations made, and now we're
what if businesses had failed en masse, and what if people had gone bankrupt en masse? Because of shutting down the economy, right? Okay, all right. Let's move along. A foreign buyer's ban on real estate. What do you think about that?
Same thing as before. 20 years ago, I might not have supported it, but right now, absolutely. We have to.
Yeah.
China alone probably has enough investment money that they could buy every property and every acre of land in all of Canada if they wanted to. Or, it's going to come. I think we have to do it. We have to get tough on some of these issues, or else we're gonna be in big trouble, especially in just in terms of this crisis that we have in affordability for homes. People are, the young kids are saying they can't afford to buy a home. Well, that's not going to make it any better if you've got millionaires buying everything up from China. It's just desperate times call for desperate measures. Yeah, we should stop it.
Okay. What about businesses, Canadian governments doing business with Elon Musk? What do you think about that?
Well, I support Musk in everything he does. So I'd say not. No one bats an eye when Bill Gates gets up there in front of somebody and tells us how the world's going to operate for the next 50 years, and then there's not even any doubt. He just tells us. People leftists do it all the time. Elon, they just don't like him because he's on the other side of the political spectrum, and we all know how they take that. They have their little tantrums and they burn down the dealerships, just like the other caller said.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the government. Again, I come back to this. If say the Alberta government did a deal for Starlink for rural communities, you'd be okay with something like that.
Absolutely, if it's the best price and the best product, and that's our money. It's the same thing with me. I'm not going to go to the store and look around for Canadian products and buy something that's Canadian if it costs twice as much as a product made from the States. I'm just not going to. It's hard times right now, and I expect the government to carefully inspect every single dollar of ours that they spend now. This is what I would like them to do, and if Starlink provides the best bang for the buck, then let's go for it.
Okay, thank you. Great call from Edmonton today, Shane. Thank you. We'll be right back. It's Talkback, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So again, we're following this big breaking news story today with Donald Trump announcing that he's raising tariffs on China to 125%, but then lowering tariffs on the countries that were subject to reciprocal tariffs to a baseline level of 10%. So the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Mr. Bessent, is speaking right now, right outside of the White House. And many questions about this. We're just going to listen to a little bit.
As I said, each one of these is going to be a separate, bespoke negotiation. So we are confident that having seen the other side of where this could go, and it was like I said last week, the market didn't understand. Those were maximum levels. The countries can think about those levels as they come to us to bring down their tariffs, their non-tariff trade barriers. We're going to discuss currency manipulation, subsidy of labor and industry.
Will the pause also apply to the sectoral tariffs that the president has announced, pharma, lumber, anything else?
No, it's on the reciprocal.
So those will still be coming here soon, right? Mr.
Correct.
Secretary, as far as the negotiations with the 75
Andrea, go ahead. Mr. Secretary, so I want to ask you about what you're doing here. So the market is reacting crazily, right?
I haven't seen it.
Do you think that this move is going to sort of change and calm down the market reaction?
What? He's asked if this is to calm down the market.
Right? There's been a lot of volatility in the market, not just in terms of stock markets, but also in terms of bonds. So will this move?
So he has so far said that the tariffs are going down to 10% baseline on all countries except for China.
The willingness by more than 75 countries to come and negotiate, I think now the market understands that everything they saw last Wednesday was a ceiling, and now we have a 10% temporary floor. And I think the market, my 35 years in the market, I always wanted certainty, so I think we've got more certainty.
But Mr. Secretary,
Maggie, go ahead. Mr. Secretary, why do people assume this is the last word? The president began this morning saying, be cool. 5 hours later, he announces a new policy. Why will investors in the market assume that this is it?
Because, again, as I said, we've given 90 days, and the only certainty we can provide is that the U.S. is going to negotiate in good faith, and we assume that our allies will too. And in terms of certainty, we will see what China does. But what I'm certain of is that what China is doing will affect their economy much more than it will ours, because they have an export-driven, flood the world with cheap export models, and the rest of the world now understands, because when we put up our tariff wall, those exports were already flowing to the rest of the G7 and to the global south.
And you think
Mr. Secretary, how much of this decision was driven by the bond market cratering overnight? What is happening with bonds? China selling their bonds?
I have nothing that says that, and we actually had quite a good 10-year auction today, and all this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along, and that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors, and we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
What's your message to America?
Okay, that is the U.S. That is the U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent. This is the biggest development in this story in a week. It was a week ago today, was Liberation Day. You remember Trump holding up the sign, all the countries, these will be the tariff rates, the reciprocal tariffs. And it's been savage on the markets. In the last 5 days, the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 10%. The S&P 500 is down more than 11%. Even our own stock market in Canada down 10%. Oil prices way down on recession fears, although they're up today. So this news has really done wonders, at least for the stock market. He was asked if this was about calming the market. He said, no, this was about exposing China. We're still trying to get some kind of clarification on what this exactly means for Canada? What does it mean for the tariffs on the auto sector, steel, aluminum, potash, Canadian energy? But the news is only 10 minutes old, maybe a half an hour old. So more details to come. It's a big breaking news story today on the tariff news, the biggest story on that in a week. I'm Rob Snow. We'll get right back to Talkback. Just wanted to give you an update with Trump officials speaking outside the White House.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, let's get back to our 3 election questions. Are you okay, not okay with the federal government running deficits? Remember, Justin Trudeau won an election promising to run deficits. Should foreigners be banned from buying Canadian homes? And should Canadian governments stop doing business with companies owned by Elon Musk? Those are our 3 election questions today. Rand up next in Alberta. Hello, Rand.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rand.
Regarding deficits, Rob,
Yep.
when a person owns a house and has a mortgage and has to buy food for the family, they have to be worried about deficits. But when it comes to a country's deficit, I think my opinion is more than 3/4 of the country do not understand how they work and what effect they have. But when they get into the billions of dollars or trillions like Canada is, then we have to start worrying. When it comes to foreign ownership of houses, my son lives in Vancouver and says that whole blocks are owned by foreign ownership, and they're driving up the houses' prices beyond reach. And so they have basically economically brutalized the city of Vancouver, but I'm not sure about other cities. When it comes to Elon Musk, he has no business being in that Trudeau government, having no experience in politics. And he's tried to purge the government to save money. And
the Trump government,
he has affected people's health care in the millions, and he has affected soldiers' benefits, and he has affected firing so many employees and then sometimes hiring them back because they made a mistake. So he seems to be trying to purge things in the government, but he has no business being there.
No business being there. What about Canadian governments signing deals and doing business deals with Elon Musk-owned companies like Starlink or Tesla? What do you think? Should stop it?
When you get to an important reason, like bringing back the 2 astronauts that were stranded in space, I can understand that as an emergency support of Musk, but otherwise I would say no. And there's no way in the world I would ever buy a Tesla car. He just has no business being there and influencing the government.
All right. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it. We still have about 90 seconds. We can fit Morgan in here before the news. Hello, Morgan. Hi, Morgan. I kind of hear Morgan. Hi, Morgan. There you are. Hi, Morgan.
Well, this is not Morgan. It's George from Alberta.
Oh, George. Okay. Sorry, George.
That's all right.
All right. Let's rock and roll here, George. Where are you on the government running deficits? Does that sit well with you?
No,
okay.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely.
We are a rich country, or should be one of the richest countries in the world. There should be no need. We have a spending problem, and that's that,
Spending problem.
And as far as foreign ownership, absolutely not. It's a money laundering scheme. And I know you city guys just talk about the houses and driving the prices of that up, but it's money laundering. But you don't understand is they are buying up thousands upon thousands upon thousands of acres of farmland.
Okay.
And when they control that farmland, when you control the food, you control the people.
All right. What about Canadian governments doing business with Elon Musk-owned companies? What do you think of that?
I think Elon Musk is one of the most wonderful, greatest men in the world. And these lefty whack jobs loved him before, and now they hate him. Drop dead, you guys.
Drop dead.
I have Starlink.
Yeah.
I got Starlink, and I won't have a Tesla because I live in the country. An electric car in the country it don't cut her.
All right.
And I live in Alberta, and it gets too cold. And
why don't you get yourself a Cybertruck? Why not a Cybertruck? What's wrong with the Cybertruck?
Well, there's no box on it. It's closed in.
Okay. All right. Okay, George. Thank you, George. Glad we could fit you in before the news. Okay, that's hour number one. It has been eventful. There's big breaking news today on tariffs. The latest breaking news is coming up next here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Well, we had an adventurous first hour of Talkback today. Let's see how the second hour goes, and welcome to it. Hi, I'm Rob Snow. We're asking 3 election questions today. What do you think about the federal government running deficits year after year after year? Are you okay with that? Not okay with that? I'd love to know what you think about that. What do you think about a foreign buyer's ban for Canadian real estate? All the parties are talking about this in one form or another on the election campaign. It was a big promise from the NDP a couple of days ago to make the foreign buyer's ban permanent. It's temporary right now from the previous Liberal government. It's supposed to expire in 2027. That's essentially the policy of the Conservative Party, that they would ban foreign buyers. They would limit purchases of real estate to Canadian citizens and permanent residents for a period of 2 years, and then see what happens. They would review it after 2 years. So that's another question. What do you think about that? And should Canadian governments stop doing business with any companies owned by Elon Musk? He's not very popular in Canada these days. Answer our 3 election questions and tell us what you think. Our call-in line is 1-833-668-2577, and we'd love to hear from you today as we go to Imran in Calgary. Hello, Imran.
Hey, hi, Rob. My question is on the Trump Elon Musk partnership. I feel that this will go to be a very different type of partnership because it's different from the traditional politicians who just don't have that kind of exposures of business, science, and technology and engineering and all. So this type of combination will going to be very, very good for the leadership, which is coming up from the front from the U.S., which will also going to help Canada too. So I feel that, hey, this type of equation should be tried now because this is really the need of the hours. We won't be able to achieve anything with the traditional politicians running the global affairs.
Okay, but my question is, the Canadian governments, provincial governments, what have you, have been signing deals with companies owned by Elon Musk. They've been buying Teslas, for example, to green government fleets. They've been deploying Starlink, for example, to bring internet access to rural and remote communities. There are calls for government to stop doing business with Elon Musk because people don't like his politics. What do you think?
Well, the thing is that, look, we have to worry about our country and its economics. We should not go into the political aspect of it because, of course, the stronger countries in the world will always going to have an upper hand in politics. My focus is only, even if we buy Teslas and technologies, internet, whatever, we need to either specialize or develop our own companies that offer electric cars and those. Till we don't have that, I think it's a good opportunity for us to really get the technologies like Japanese did from the U.S. years ago when they copied all the medical science, automotives, and then they excel in it, and then look where they are now. So this is what we need to do. We cannot be dependent on other countries and be kind of dictated the way things they want to do it, If they want the dictations to be eliminated, they need to focus on their own self-reliance on these technologies and develop these things in Canada so that way there's no dependency on these countries,
All right. Imran, thank you for your call. Great to hear from you today. Let's move along to Danvir is in Calgary as well today. Hi, Danvir. Good to hear from you.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, Danvir. Yeah.
Okay. So your first question was about the
deficits. Are you okay or not okay with the federal government constantly running budget deficits?
No, I'm not okay with constantly running deficits. Like there should be a limitation on the deficits, like legally limitation as a percentage of GDP, and that too with the provision of like how many years they're going to pay back. And if they don't follow that schedule, like they should be banned from running the deficit next year altogether.
Okay. What do you think about banning foreigners for buying Canadian real estate? Where are you on that?
Yeah, okay, so the real estate is a broad term, right? So
residential real estate.
Yeah, so single family homes, they're like the foreigners or even the corporations have no business investing in those. Like they just hoard it, and hoarding should be banned altogether.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Should be
Right?
banned
So
altogether. Okay. Okay.
Like single family homes are supposed to be for the citizens or the permanent residents to have their to raise their family, right? Not as an investment tool.
Okay. Okay. What about Canadian governments doing businesses with companies owned by Elon Musk? Should the government be doing any business with Elon Musk?
Like I believe in free market. Like I'm a capitalist.
Sure.
Like so.
Sure.
Yeah. So they should not be given any advantage. But yeah.
Right.
Like if you restrict one company, the others would charge you more, so it will reduce competition. But like nobody should be given advantage over one over the other, right? So.
Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, yeah, great call as usual from you, Danveer. Thank you for answering those questions for me. And you could join the discussion today as we ask 3 election questions. It's the Wednesday edition, hour number 2 of Talkback. Sebastian in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Sebastian. You're on the air. Let's start with deficits.
How are you doing,
what do you
Rob?
think? I'm good, Sebastian. Deficits, year after year, deficits. The government hasn't balanced the budget in 10 years. Where are you on that?
I do not support that. I don't think we should be sustaining deficits for an extended period of time. It's just a necessary cost.
An unnecessary cost. Okay. Should foreigners be banned from buying Canadian homes, residential real estate? What do you think about that?
It's a tough question. If there was a way to police that, not having an individual buying 20 properties for rent or for money laundering, as a previous caller said, or for whatever reason. Yeah, but I am okay as long as it's not for speculation.
Right. You do want to crack down on speculators, right? Or money laundering, as you say, organized crime, overseas organized crime. Sure. What do you think about Canadian governments doing business with companies like Tesla and Starlink, companies that are owned by Elon Musk?
So I'm a believer of free trade, and I'm very saddened for everything that's going on these days. But what would be an alternative for example, Starlink contract in Ontario? Are we going to be paying more for that because we just don't want to deal with Elon Musk? So in that case, I wouldn't favor that thought.
Right. Like, what if the Elon Musk, in the case of Starlink, what if that's the best product at the best price?
Then I'd be okay.
Right.
I'd be okay dealing with Elon Musk.
Okay. All right. Sebastian, thank you for your call today. Robert is up next on Talkback. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
3 election questions today, Robert. Yeah.
Well, my main comment is on the deficits.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a born Albertan. I'm a conservative. I don't like deficits. But about 10 years ago, I got a different perspective on them than I'd ever had. when it was pointed out that the point of a government is, if possible, to pay down a deficit, but deficits are measured in percentage of GDP. And the deficit increasing is not because the total dollars increased, but because the percentage GDP increased. Now, to pay down a deficit, pay off the interest every year, never pay a penny on the deficit, let inflation run 2% a year, and you'll always hear them saying that 2% a year is really healthy, and this is why. It reduces your percentage of GDP by 2% if all else is equal. Therefore, as I say, they're really misleading us a bit on this whole deficit thing, and it has to be looked at that way.
Okay. As a percentage of the GDP.
Yes. If you don't add anything to the deficit, you don't pay off anything on the deficit, but the gross domestic product increases, it becomes a smaller percentage of the GDP. And over 40 or 50 years, it becomes so small a percentage that it really doesn't matter. But they got to control it as best they can on the other end.
Okay. So as long as it's not too out of hand, you're okay with a government running a budget deficit.
Well, I don't remember which economist I was reading, but he pointed out that at the end of World War II, we had, I believe it was a $60 billion deficit due to World War II.
Okay.
And he said, how did we pay it off? And his answer was, we never did. We still owe it. But 60 billion then was like 20% of GDP, and now it's like a fraction of 1%. So nobody's concerned about it.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thank you. I never really thought about it that way, Robert, but thank you. We have time to take Sherry's call. Also calling from Calgary today. Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Sherry. I'm good, Sherry. Thank you.
Good. It's nice talking to you. I've been trying
nice
you
talking
since
to you.
the Sentinel days when you were talking.
Okay.
But there's only one thing I really want to talk about is the foreigners owning property in Canada. Yes. I really think they should have at least be some time in Canada, maybe 5 to 10 years before they can buy a property. Because I've got sons that are renting, and one guy owns 5-6 houses, and he's not, he's been in Canada for about 2-3 years, right? So I'm against that a little bit. I think they should put it on. You got to be here for 5 or so many years before you buy any property, and give the younger people a chance that are born in Canada.
Okay. All right. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would support. You would support.
Oh, sorry. Just wait. Go ahead.
That's okay. You would support some kind of restrictions, maybe having to do with residency in the country, right?
Yes, I would definitely support that. Yes, because like I said, it's people coming over and they're owning 5, 6 properties, 8 properties, and the rent is high, and it's almost like you owning a house and paying just the interest rate. So, that's how high the rent is in Calgary today.
Right.
And that's the only thing I can really support. I haven't done much reading, but I listen to you almost every day. Even if I'm cleaning my house, my radio's right up.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, making us part of your daily routine like that. To listeners like you, I count on the most. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great to hear from you. Yeah, Sherry. Bye-bye. Nathaniel is called today. Hi, Nathaniel.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Nathaniel. How are you?
Good, doing very well.
That's good. Great to hear it. What do you think about
I guess the first
go ahead.
question
on deficits.
Deficits. Yeah, well, if we can give, other countries, the money that we've been giving them over the last however many years from the Liberals, I think if we stopped that, we'd have money for ourselves, so we wouldn't have a deficit. Or we'd have maybe a little bit of a deficit, but it wouldn't be so substantial. So that'd be, the first thought.
Well, exactly. Just on that point, if I could just interrupt there, that that's something that Poilievre has mentioned. The Conservative Party leaders, they ask him, The reporters ask, how will you balance the budget, Mr. Poilievre? And that's one of the first things he mentions. I'll cut foreign aid.
And I don't understand how Liberals can be okay with just giving all our hard-earned money away.
Okay.
I just don't understand that idea.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the
What about
second thing,
foreign
housing,
ownership
I don't know
ban?
a lot about that, but I would say overall it's take care of your own people first. It's no different with how you run your household and your employees and whatever else it might be. Take care of your people first, your family first, and those outside of the country are second. Yes, they may help the markets and whatever else, but we have an issue with lack of homes, lack of infrastructure. Roads are falling apart.
Okay.
We don't have cash to fix it. So,
all right.
Yeah, fix that.
What
and then
about
the last
Canadian
point would be-
governments doing business with companies owned by Elon Musk?
I guess if we're becoming a communist country, it would make sense to, force everybody to buy from TELUS or Bell or Rogers or whoever it might be. It's none of your business. It's none of their business. Let people buy what they want to buy. If you don't like Elon, then don't buy his product. But
what about the government
controlling-
doing? We're talking about the government. Like, so let's say the government wants to green the fleet of the government fleet. It says, we're not going to buy Teslas. We don't like Elon Musk. What would you think of that? Very quickly.
I don't know. It's
No?
a joke, I guess. If you
It's a
don't want to
joke.
buy it, then
Okay.
don't buy it.
No, that's a popular opinion today, Nathaniel. That is a popular opinion today. Thank you for sharing yours. I really appreciate it. Very busy news day today. To bring you right up to date right now here on News Radio. Let's go to Safari in Kitchener today. Great to get a call from Kitchener today. Hi, Safari.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Regarding the people buying house, right? Like the foreigner,
Yes.
right?
Foreigners buying
Obviously,
houses.
It's too
Yes.
late. Whatever they bought,
It's too late.
They bought it
Okay.
in the last 6-7 years of Liberal. They bought everything. I don't see any space in Waterloo, Kitchener anymore that they can build and buy. They already bought.
Okay.
And then
Already bought.
people shouldn't forget that the people they bought house the last 4 or 5 years, you guys have no idea how much they're paying property tax and how much they're paying mortgage rate. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then
Okay.
Also, somebody else I was listening to, he said, "Oh, the government of Canada should stop sending money to other countries." Sir,
Foreign aid,
go
yeah.
educate yourself. Government of Canada don't send nothing. These politicians, they split the money among themselves. Look at Trudeau. His net worth more than $100 million.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Within 8 years. Where the hell he got those money?
Well, I don't know where that figure comes from. If that's just an online thing, is that misinformation, disinformation? I don't know where that's coming from. Where does that number come from?
Go to Google. Google it.
Well, go to Google. I mean, okay.
Well, yeah. And then also, when people expecting from politicians to change something, no, they don't. They can't do nothing. They work for big corporation. Do you think that a rich guy like Elon Musk or Jack Bezos or Bill Gates, do you think they count this politician? Do you think they can buy this politician? Why people expecting for politicians to change that? They can do nothing. They just get your vote, and later on they change their mind. Just get smart. They can do nothing. Honestly.
Okay. So you don't? Are you saying you don't even think that it's possible for the government to stop doing business with Elon Musk? Oh, I think we lost him. Safari, thank you. I don't know where this figure comes from. Justin Trudeau has a net worth of $100 million. I have no idea. People have called me and told me that I have no idea where that comes from. Gary is up next in Guelph. Thanks for calling, Gary. Hi, Gary.
Yep. Hi there. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, Gary. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
Love your show.
My kingdom for a functioning cell phone sometimes, but that's okay. Are you okay or not okay with the federal government running deficits?
Well, I believe that a deficit does have to be run to some degree, but we definitely should be working towards paying it down and, keeping it in control. And, that has to be done through shrinking the government in some degree. So I'm not for running a deficit as huge as we are, but something that's more in tune with, a well-run government is what I'd say there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Where do you stand on banning foreigners from buying residential real estate? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I agree moving forward that probably they should not be allowed to purchase additional new properties and so on and so forth. But I believe the large number that already have should be forced to, if they leave the country in any way, to sell those properties back to Canadian citizens. They shouldn't be able to go off somewhere else and continue to manage or operate those properties in Canada.
Okay. What do you think about governments doing business with companies owned by Elon Musk? Governments swinging deals to install Starlink or buying Teslas for a government fleet. What do you think about that? Should that stop?
Again, if it's done in a way that it benefits Canadians or benefits us in some way, then I say I'm okay with it. But it's got to benefit us, in some way.
Okay, because there are calls, and governments have moved to, sell Teslas that they already bought or promise not to buy any Teslas in Ontario. Of course, this in Ontario. Doug Ford signed a $100 million deal to install Starlink, but then canceled it because of tariffs. But that's an example there.
Yes, for sure. But again, I mean, if it can be worked out where it's beneficial to Canadians or to the government, where it's beneficial to us, then I'm fine with it. If it's not,
and you're fine with it.
No. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Great to hear from you. Thank you so much for your call from Guelph today. First time caller there, Gary, to Talkback Wednesday edition. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We have enjoyed the discussion today, asking you 3 election questions as we just about hit the midway point of the federal election campaign, talking about budget deficits. 10 years. 2015, the last time the federal government balanced the budget. They don't balance themselves, and foreign ownership of Canadian real estate and Elon Musk. The Elon Musk story has kind of taken on a life of its own in this country. A lot of governments in Canada, various levels of government, they've made moves in this direction to stop doing business with Elon Musk related companies. I mentioned Premier Ford in Ontario. His government signed a deal with Starlink, owned by Elon Musk, for internet access for rural and remote communities. He has since canceled that because of the tariffs. Take that, Elon. That was a $100 million contract. And some people had been questioning that contract anyway, saying the Ontario government was overpaying and worse, being taken to the cleaners. But there are calls for other governments to do the same kind of thing. There was an opinion piece in the Globe and Mail just yesterday with the writers arguing nobody in Canada should be using Starlink, and that instead governments should be investing in their own internet infrastructure for rural and remote communities, which sounds great, but we have to live in the real world, and in the real world, Starlink is here now and kind of has first mover advantage because it is so widely available. It has all of those satellites in the sky, the LEO satellites, and that has done wonders to close the so-called digital divide in this country between urban and suburban Canadians and rural and remote Canadians. But people think it's all part of the evil empire, the Musk empire. And then there's Tesla. It's become very fashionable, of course, for people to protest outside their local Tesla dealership. It's happening all the time these days, a weekly occurrence where we are in the Ottawa area. In New Brunswick, they have a new Liberal provincial government, newish, I guess, in New Brunswick. Premier Susan Holt. They have for years been greening the government fleet with Teslas. They bought a bunch of them for cabinet ministers, which didn't go over very well. They bought them used, but they were still $82,000 each. But they're going to get rid of those now. And Premier Holt has said we're not going to buy any more. And I heard Mark Carney the other day talk about the federal government's plan to green the fleet, which you think about the federal government, tens of thousands of vehicles. And it is now very doubtful that Teslas will be under consideration for any greening of the federal government's fleet. They'll be looking for made in Canada alternatives. And don't forget, there's also the multi-billion-dollar plan from the federal government for charging stations from one end of the country to the other end. I don't know if any of those are going to be Tesla charging stations. I don't know if Tesla would allow the government to do that. Doesn't Tesla run its own charging network anyway? But it's very, very popular. The Halifax Regional Councillors, God bless them, voted last night, deactivate the Halifax Regional Municipalities account on X. You take that, Elon Musk. But city councils were supposed to, plow the snow, fix the potholes, collect the garbage and the recycling. World-class virtue signaling there from the Regional Council in Halifax. I'm Rob Snow, back tomorrow with more Talkback. This is News Radio.